Hello everyone, this is Monaro and welcome to my channel. I want to do a quick review of Game of Thrones episode 6. I'm sorry, Game of Thrones season 6, episode 7. I just want to talk about the characters and briefly talk about some of their scenes and just kind of give a little bit of my thoughts and then wrap up at the end. So the first character that I want to talk about is Margaery. So we see Margaery first with the High Septon. They have a brief conversation about, some verses that she had recited to him. And then he tells her that she needs to fulfill her duty in the marriage bed. And she's telling about how, ever since she's seen the light that she hasn't, really had those kind of desires. But he tells her that, she has a duty to the realm in order to produce an heir. And then he slyly threatens her grandmother by saying, it would be a good idea for her not to remain in the city since, she is not a really true believer. And she might find herself in some trouble because of that. So we next see her with her grandmother, and Septa Unella is there because I believe Septa Unella now is kind of like her chaperone. So, she's talking this faith language, and Lady Olenna is like, please stop talking like that. What's happened to you? She says, Marjorie's telling her, she's seen the light. She's, been, she's, seen the error of her ways. And so Olena's like, I just want to talk to you by yourself. She goes, Yelena's not my good, um, Septa Unella is like her good friend now. And so she grabs Margaery and walks off with her, and Septa Unella follows. And she looks at Septa Unella and said, if I wanted to, I can call my guards and they could just beat you up into a bloody pulp until I tell them to stop, if I tell them to stop, which I thought was hilarious. I thought that was funny. And so Margaery's telling her, look, to calm down. Everything is going to be okay. She squeezes something into her hand, and then Lady Olenna picks up on that. And so she looks at Margaery, and Margaery's telling her, look, just to go home. Everything is going to be okay. And she shakes her head, yes. And so they hug, and then she leaves. Um, and then as she leaves, she opens up the paper that Margaery squeezed into her hand, and she sees that it's a picture of their house sigil, the rose, and their house words are growing strong. So that's essentially Margaery telling her grandmother that I'm okay, that I'm in my right mind, that I'm just playing the game, and so just to kind of keep, put her grandmother at ease. So we next see Olenna with Cersei. So Olenna is sitting down writing on a piece of parchment. And so Cersei walks up to her and was like, look, we need to put our houses together in order to try to, save our children. And so Olenna essentially says, look, our houses are in this trouble because of your stupidity. You were the one that gave power to the Faith Militant. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be in the trouble that we're in. You ended up you got my grandchildren arrested. You got yourself arrested. You had to do a walk of atonement in the streets naked. You no longer have any respect. You don't have a leg to stand on. You have no more allies. They've sent Jaime to the Riverlands, which was the work of the High Sparrow. So you're pretty much alone. And she tells her, look, if you had any brains, you would leave the city because I'm leaving before the High Set decides that he wants to put me in jail. And she's like, well, what about your children? She goes, well, they're going to be okay. She goes, but I'm not staying. So the next thing we see is Jaime and Bronn. Jaime and Bronn are back together again, off doing their bro thing. But as they're riding along, Bronn looks at Jaime and says, hey, you know what? You promised me a castle. You promised me, a lordship. And you promised me one of the most beautiful women in the realm. And Jaime starts repeating the Lannister words. A Lannister always pays his debts. And Jaime's like, and Bronn is like, please stop. Don't even say it. Don't even say it. And rides off. And the next thing we see is the Riverrun Castle, and the Freys have started a siege, started to siege the castle, and they have Edmure up on a scaffold and a noose around his neck to hang him, and they are calling out to the Blackfish to surrender the castle. And so the Blackfish appears at the top um, of the castle, and he's looking down at them. And so Black Walder goes up to Edmure and holds a knife to his neck and tells the Blackfish, like, if he doesn't surrender the castle, that he is going to slit um, Edmure's throat. And so the Blackfish is stone faced looking at them. And so they have like this long stare off. And so the Blackfish eventually says, kill him, and walks away. And so Lothar looks at Black Walder and just shakes his head and is like, screw it. And so they take the noose off of Edmure's neck and get ready to walk him off. And meanwhile, while this whole scene is going down, Bronn and Jaime are watching this. And so Jaime and Bronn start to walk up to the Freys, and Lothar notices him first, I believe. And he says, oh, we didn't know that you were coming. Had we known, we would have made preparations. And so he looks over and tells Black Walder, go get Edmure clean and fed. And so Lothar walks over to him. Black Walder walks over to him and say, look, he's our prisoner. He said, look, you can't make empty threats. It would just be like me saying, if you say another word, I'm gonna smack you across the face, and then I don't do it. And so as Black Walder gets ready to say something, Jaime cracks him across the face with his gold hand. And it's basically to drive the point. You don't make a threat you don't intend to carry out, or else you get nowhere. It's just empty threats. You're not going to get any results. So he tells them, look, I'm taking over this siege. And so Bronn starts to bark out orders about what they're supposed to do with the perimeter. And he tells Bronn to send someone over to send word to the Blackfish that he wants to have a parley. And so we see the Blackfish pull down his gates and come to meet with Jaime so that they can have this parley. So the first thing the Blackfish asks him is, where are Sansa and Arya? And Jaime says, I don't have them. And, he says, the word of an oathbreaker absolutely means nothing. And so basically Jaime is saying, look, we don't have to keep doing this. You need to turn the castle over to the Freys. It belongs to them. He said, this is my castle. This is my family castle. I was born here. I was raised here. He says, look, and Jaime says, there's no need for anyone to die. There's no need for us to go to war. The war is over. And so Blackfish says, look, as long as I'm standing, the war is not over. And so he starts to walk off. And so Jaime's like, well, why did you even, agree to treat me? He said, a siege is boring, and, it could be dull. Sieges could be dull, and I just wanted to come and see you for myself and take the measure of you for myself. And Jaime's like, so what do you think? He's like, I'm disappointed, and just walks off and pulls up his gate. And so that's how we leave things in the Riverlands. So we go up north, and so Davos, Sansa, and Jon are off going to different houses in the north and trying to gain support. So the first place they go to is House Mormont, and they meet with the lady of the house is Lady Lyanna Mormont, who's this little girl, and they're trying to butter her up and said, Sansa's like, the last time I saw you, you were, just a little baby, blah, 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 blah. And that she was named after her aunt, and she was beautiful. And so, and Jon is like, I knew your uncle, I served under him as a steward. And Lady Lyanna's like, okay, enough with trying to blow smoke up my butt. What do you want? And so they said, well, we need you to stand with us against House Bolton. She goes, no. And so Jon is like, I was there when you wrote that note to, you sent that note to Stannis. She goes, I know what I wrote in the note. The House Mormont will not bend the knee to recognizes no other king other than the king in the north, and his name is Stark. But you're a Snow. And so Sansa's like, well, I'm a Stark. She goes, last I heard, you were married to a Lannister, or was it a Bolton? And Sansa's like, well, I did what I had to do to survive. And so she essentially tells them no. And so Davos steps in and, appeals to her want to kind of keep her people safe, and talks about, that the Night's King and the White Walkers are coming. At some point, they're gonna be in danger either way, and that if they don't stand together, they will not win the war against the White Walkers and the Night's King. And so she agrees, but she only has 62 men. So that is what she provides for them. And so they go next to House Glover. Now, House Glover totally just dismisses them and tells them they're not helping them at all. When they were under attacked under the Ironborn, it was the Boltons that came to save them, and he essentially calls them on their BS. He said, "Look, where were the Starks when my wife and my child were being thrown over the wall? He was off marrying some foreign whore and getting all of his men killed. The only reason why he saw them was out of respect for their father, but." The Boltons are in charge now, and he's not trying to have any more of his family killed, so he is not providing them any help. So when they go back to their encampment where they are with the Wildlings and the Mormonts, you know what I mean? She's telling Jon, look, we need more men. And Jon's like, we don't have any men, so we're going to fight with what we have. And so she notices the ravens that Lady Mormont has, and so she goes to write a note, and I believe she's writing a note to Littlefinger in order to secure the Vale army. So we next see Yara and Theon, and this is fairly quick. The purpose of their scene is to basically say, look, they're going to try to hook up with Dany in order to try to make a pact with her in order for them to be able to get the Iron Islands back. And that's essentially what their plan is. And she's trying to just make sure that Theon is going to be strong enough in order to stand and fight and support her when she needs him to. Because he's still suffering from a lot of trauma from what he has been through. So I'm sure where they were was making him very uncomfortable, and so that's pretty much all that scene. The scene pretty much spoke for itself. There was not really much to say about it. And then we get to, I'll talk about Arya. So Arya is walking through Braavos, which seemed kind of weird to me because when we last saw her, she was in her little catacomb and she turns lights out. It would seem kind of weird to me that she would just be walking around knowing that she knows that her life is pretty much forfeit because she didn't fulfill the contract to kill the actress. So she's walking around Braavos and she talks to this merchant, I guess the ship merchant, and says, she wants a ride and that she's willing to pay him. And she throws a bag of money on the table, and then she turns around, she says that we'll leave at first light, and then she grabs the bag, and I guess that means that, she'll pay him when they get ready to leave. And then next we see her standing over this bridge, overlooking over to the Titan. And as she's standing there, this old lady who's pushing a cart sees her, and then she just jumps on her and then grabs her and then stabs her in the stomach. And Arya pushes off and grabs the face, and she sees that it's the waif, and then she just jumps over the bridge into the water. And so the waif is just looking at the water to see if she'll pop up, and she doesn't. All she sees is blood coming up, and so she in effect feels like, okay, she's killed her, so she's good. But next we see Arya. She comes out of the water and she is bleeding, and so she's walking through Braavos. She's scared because she doesn't know all the faces that she's looking at. She doesn't know which one of them is going to come out and kill her, which seems, again, kind of strange to me. Why are you out in the open if you've just been attacked, you've just been stabbed? Why would you just be walking out in the open? I would think that you would just want to be in hiding, but I guess we'll see what's really going on coming up in the next episode. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about is the Hound. So the Hound is back. He was actually the first scene that we see. Actually, they showed a scene of him before they even started the beginning credits, which is kind of cool. So we have him back. So he's now living a life of obscurity. He's living a quiet life. He's with this group of encampment of people. They're doing good work. They're building something. And so the elder brother who found him pretty much narrates the story of where we last left the Hound up until now. About how he found him. He thought that he was dead, but then he coughed, and so they nursed him and healed him back to health. And so obviously the gods have meant for him to be alive. And so while they're at this encampment, they're eating, they're talking with each other, and then the elder brother starts to tell his story about, when he was a soldier and some of the terrible crimes that he committed, but, how he is now atoning for it by doing good. He said that's all that we all can do. Whenever we do terrible things, we can atone for them by doing good things. And so, as he's doing that, we have three soldiers or three men ride up to their encampment, and basically it's just asking them what do they have, because they want something. And so the elder brother states that they don't have anything. And so when the elder brother questions them about who they are, they said like they're here to protect the realm, and that protecting the realm costs, and it's hard work. And so the elder brother essentially says, well, we don't have anything. um, and so they ride off and tell them to be safe. And so that was kind of suspect. And so it ends up that they it's alluded to that they may have come back and slaughtered the camp. So because the next time we see the hound, as he's cutting some branches or some rushes, and he runs over to their little encampment, and he finds that all of them have been slaughtered, and that they hung the elder brother. And so he grabs the axe, and I suspect that he is probably going to go after those men and go and get justice. So Sandor Clegane is now the Hound again. So that should be exciting to see. So that's pretty much it. I give this episode like a 7.5. I'm not giving it a real high rating, even though we got the Hound back, which was really exciting. But that was pretty one of the main highlights of this episode. I think most of the story plots were just being moved along to build up to the more exciting things. So it wasn't really anything exciting to talk about. So I guess I think there's only 2 more episodes left to the series. So I guess we'll see um, uh, how they're getting ready to wrap this story arc out. So I think we're going to see a lot of these these plot lines start to close out for this season, getting ready for the next season. So thank you very much for stopping by and watching my video. I truly appreciate it. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. Also subscribe. I plan on doing some more videos. I have some other things that I'm gonna be getting ready to do on this channel that I'm really excited about, and I hope that you'll come back in order to watch and see what I have in store. Until then, fear cuts deeper than swords.